Hi, all. Welcome to another week, and thank you for your good work, and thank you for persevering despite what all you might be having to shoulder right now, and what all we are anticipating, not knowing which way to turn. What a curious time. And I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned for those people who are thinking, and I just want you to pay attention if you count yourself among those people who are thinking, well, at least when the smoke lifts, at least when the rain comes, at least when there's a vaccine, at least this, we might get back to. I don't know if it's healthy to think that way anymore, right? Like around every corner, there's something completely new that we never would have anticipated that we could just start to feel the weight of, if each new thing is a new disaster, and that would leave us curled up in the corner of the room and not even able to function. So I hope that you can learn to think beyond that and to just take each new hour and each new day and embrace it with some level of joy and some level, if you're a person of faith, of deep-seated peace and some hope in something that's coming. My concern is that if we're praying so fiercely for the rain, if it comes as there's a storm expected to come this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and if there's torrential rain on top of wildfires, at least in the cities we'll be fine, but when we're out in the woods where the wildfires hit, that actually could be hugely problematic in terms of mudslides and other concerns. So it's not that things are over or that we're waiting for the next bend to turn around and be done. It's just looking at life as a story. And this is a new twist in the story. And how do we incorporate it with what was and bring it into something new? Because if we don't think in that way, we're going to find ourselves feeling very, very downtrodden. And I don't want you to count yourself among those. But if you feel compelled to tell your stories on the discussion forums or in writing, however else, that is such a healthy way to grapple with what we're going through. So feel free to. I have a couple just brief ones. We live in the Sherwood area. We're just on the edge of town, which normally is just a godsend and wonderful. But in times of wildfires, which who would have expected, we're actually right on the edge of the forest. So we have, thankfully, praise God, stayed 3 houses outside of the evacuation zone the entire week, which keeps you on your toes. You're always watching and on the alert in case we do slide into that evacuation zone. But we're through with it. The smoke is horrible today. It was horrible yesterday. Trying to stay sealed inside the house. I have several cats, and every time one of them comes in from the outside, they smell just awful. And I'm a camper, and I love a good campfire, but right now I'm about done with it and ready for some fresh air and some blue sky and a little bit of sunshine. And I see the sun just barely starting to peek through today, which gives me some hope. I had a conversation with another faculty member last week. She happens to live down on the southern edge of the George Fox campus. And I look out windows this way where she sits and has her Zoom meetings. She's looking at windows out this way to her left. And at one point she looked out the window and said, "Oh, the winds have changed and the flames are actually coming down over the hill." She's right near Chehalem Mountain. And I said, "Do you think you should go?" She said, no, it's a good 5 miles away. I'm fine, but I asked her to keep looking every so often during our hour meeting to make sure that she indeed was fine. And towards the end of our meeting, as we were both about to sign off of the Zoom session, we heard beeping, and it was hard to tell at the beginning whether that beeping was coming from her house or my house. And as we listened, it started to escalate and echo, and we realized that all the smoke detectors were going off in her home just from the air quality. There's not a lot that you can do when that's happening. And I know that some of you have contacted me and let me know that you're having a similar situation. And probably one of the hardest words, aside from some of the very painful news stories that we've all read, one of the hardest words that I got was from a childhood best friend who happens to live in Mexico, Guanajuato, with her husband and son, but she got word that her mom and her mom's husband they were awakened, and they live along the Santiam River, and they were awakened in the night. I think it was on Tuesday night at 1:30 in the morning by flames and fire. They didn't even get the evacuation level 1 and then level 2. Now I'm going to pack my bag. Do I go? Do I not go? And then level 3, out of here. They didn't get any of those, and we praise God that they woke up at 1:30 in the morning and saw that they were starting to be surrounded by flames. And so they got into their car. They didn't have time to grab anything except the pets that they had, and they did make it safely out of there. They got down to Lyons where they were safe. And their house is a complete loss. So they posted pictures. Well, they didn't, but my best friend did, of the house, this beautiful, not very big, but just picturesque scene right on the river. And then the subsequent picture is just this odd piece of single slice of metal kind of into the sky that's hanging there, and nothing. There's nothing to go through. There's nothing to look for. There's nothing left. Just the property, and they're thankful that they're alive. So I know you all have stories. Feel free to share them. We are a storytelling class if you feel compelled to. And as I said before, that's a very healthy approach, really. Something that I want you considering in your assignments for this week is a concept called point of view. You'll see me using the acronym POV, point of view. And point of view, there are 3 different primary points of view, and this is, yes, in fiction writing, but it's also just in writing in general. And most of us make these decisions subconsciously without realizing we're making them. And a lot of us make decisions about things like commas and semicolons and dashes and where to end a sentence subconsciously, and you're going to see me nudging you into consciousness. I want you to make these decisions with intentionality so that if somebody questions you, might be a professor, might be a coworker, might be a boss who says, I don't think a comma goes there. I would love you to emerge from this class with the confidence to say, actually, I intended one there, and here is exactly why. So same thing with point of view is one of these concepts that we don't always think about intentionally, but you're making that decision every time you write. The 3 primary kinds of point of view are first person. First person is I or we. Second person is a little more rare, and that is you. And when you imagine a whole paragraph or a whole story that's in second person you, it can sound a little bit awkward at first because it almost sounds like a command tone, like the writer is pushing onto the reader. But if you relax into it, it actually requires the reader to step fully into the character that the writer has created. And it can be very, very effective if it works well. If it doesn't work in second person, and let's say that I'm writing about a character who happens to be a professional level football player, and he's 6'8", and he weighs whatever it is, and he has this background, and everything is completely different from who I am and what I am. It can fail miserably if you don't bring your readers along effectively. So it can be very effective, can also be very challenging if it doesn't work well. The third kind of point of view is third person point of view. That is he, she, or they. And you'll see in a lot of novels, well, certainly the most common are first person or third person. And what's interesting to watch for as you become cognizant of these differences are trends. So literary trends, where perhaps it was more popular for sometimes 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or generations to write in first person for that very personal feeling. And it may be that first person was not the actual author's experience. They're creating a character and then speaking in the natural I, in the voice of that character. And then there are times, for in the 1800s, for example, where it was all the vogue to experiment with different kinds of third person. And there are varying levels of third person. It's not just creating a he character or a she character, but is that character going to be the main actor in the story, or are they going to be peripheral to the action, but actually they have some emotional things that are happening to them? So we won't necessarily get into all those idiosyncrasies. That's left for a creative writing class, which would be fun as well. If you're interested, happy to talk to you about it, happy to answer emails. What I'm asking you to do on your assignment for this week is to experiment with point of view, and you can read the instructions on the assignment. I don't ever want you to feel pushed into something, as I think I've said on other videos, that is just feeling like busy work or feeling like a direction that's not natural for you or not interesting for you. So feel free to press back or to push into the direction that makes the most sense for you. So if you're not of a creative writing mind and you're really taking this course just to understand the art of story in order to use it well in your workplace, then do that. So when you pick a point of view in the workplace, that also needs to be intentional, and you need to do the research, even if it's just research in your brain, to think through, what is this character and what does this character bring to my customers, my audience? So it could be that if you're selling a product, you're going to create a story, or maybe you're telling a story that's a true story, and you're going to need to articulate it well about a person who's had an experience that I hope was successful, or that they had a trying time and then emerged from it in this grandiose way. And so you're going to need to get inside of their head as well as understanding yourself. And that can be challenging. And you're getting inside of your audience's head at the same time. Do you see the psychology over all of this? So what I'm asking you to do for this next assignment is I'm going to reduce the page minimum just a little bit. And whenever I say at least, for example, with this assignment, it's 1 to 3 pages, I really do mean that. I'm not looking necessarily for 3 pages for a better grade. If you turn in 1 full, complete, accurate, effective, not accurate, I didn't really mean that word, but just good effort on 1 page, then that will satisfy what we're looking for, okay? So what I want you to also do, 2 other components. One of them we've already done, which is to include an audience description. And I have a handout posted that might help you in a little more detail with how to do that. I also want you to include a character analysis. So there's a handout for that as well. And what I would suggest you do is just download that Word doc and then fill it in, or you can do a cut and paste, whatever makes sense to you, and just turn it back in as an appendix as the instructions ask you to. I want you to take some time with that. You can answer those questions very quickly. They can be one-word answers, whatever makes sense to you, but don't skip them and say that they don't apply. Because when you do that, there's a certain level of, I don't really want to dig that deeply. But the deeper you dig, in terms of your audience and in terms of whatever voice you're using, whatever point of view you're using to communicate what you want to communicate, the deeper you dig into those 2 things, I guarantee you, the more effective your writing will be. Let me know if you have questions, and I'm just praying for a week that we can all look back on and say, well, that was a peaceful one. Not a whole lot of new, shocking, traumatic things happening. Blessings on you if you're moving back home. I know quite a few of you have been evacuated and maybe headed back home this week. So keep me posted if you've been out of internet, out of electricity, and things are coming back on. Just keep communicating with me so I know how to be praying for you. God bless.